welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast of the UK.
Hello. How are we all
evening.
today?
Cool. How's everybody's build up to Christmas? That word. See, I got me a little bit of tinsel. Look.
C word.
The word.
Mine's going good, I have to say. I'll quickly tell you. I screwed up a little bit with my holidays in the sense that I got all the way to October and I hadn't taken more than a couple of days holiday this year. So I've had to try and fit a full year's worth of holidays into the months of October, November, and December. So I have 1 week left, and then I am fully off until the new year, plus a couple of days post that as well. So that should be really good fun. In that, I was meant to be doing a powerlifting competition this weekend, but it looks as though that's not going to go ahead now, sadly. And then just got a load of other stuff on next week. So I've got a very busy week next week, and then I'm going to be doing pretty much nothing until the new year, which would be really nice. How about you guys?
To be employed? What's it like to be employed and have time off then?
Obviously, I've not done very well at it because I got reminded to take my holiday, use it or lose it, and that was it. So in one instance, it's nice. In another instance, only if you remember to take it. That's it. I've got 4 days that I'll lose because I forgot about them.
Here's a question for good boss, bad boss.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Sean. Engage.
Yeah, go on.
Right,
Yeah,
you're the boss. Right.
Yeah.
It's coming to the end. I've not taken any holiday. Can I cash it in, please?
No.
Alex, please can I cash my holiday in and have cash instead of the holiday time off?
So I'll be asking 3 things. Number 1, what was the reason that led you to not taking the time off this year? Was it poor time management on your behalf? Was it me putting too much work on your plate?
Because you put too much pressure on me, and you were saying I had to do 25 routines a day, and you haven't given me a day off, and I want to cash my holiday in.
Well, in which case, yeah, that's clearly my fault. However, not bad. Here's your holiday. But yeah, I mean, I know for a fact cash on holiday, it causes huge cash flow issues. It's like paying an extra month at the end of the year, which is a problematic. And if you ask to then roll the holiday over, that leads to another problem, which is if you have someone who is not taking their holiday anyway, either because they don't remember to, they don't feel the need to, or you're not giving them the time to, then rolling the holiday over to next year simply means it's twice the problem the following year. If you can't take 20 days this year, what makes you think you're going to be able to take 40 days next year? So yeah, I think when we talk about good boss, bad boss, it's as much the responsibility of your manager as it is yourself to make sure that as each quarter or each half of the year goes by, that somebody is keeping an eye on that. Otherwise you do exactly what I did, which is nobody keeps an eye on the ball, and suddenly that's it, we get to October and there's no time left to take it. 20 days left of holiday and 60 working days within which to try and fit it in.
What about, Sean, I don't want it to be on standby this Christmas. Can I have the whole of Christmas off?
Both my lads get the whole of Christmas off.
So who's on standby then?
Me. Every year. I don't mind. It's your business, isn't it? Like you can, they've got families, they've got things they want to do, and it's your business, isn't it? That's why.
What about Christmas Day? You get the call.
Oh yeah, I would never ever dream of even telling them that a call had come in. I would just, first of all, I wouldn't go and do it unless it was outrageously bad. You know, but no. Do you have to answer the phone on Christmas Day?
Our law.
Yeah, but do you have to answer the phone on Christmas Day?
Well, if you say you're on standby, you're on standby, aren't you? You know, Marks and Spencers don't close.
Yeah, we don't do that shit, do we?
I don't know, I'm just being a CUNT.
Yeah, no, yeah. And Marx's and everything shut on Christmas Day as well. I think you'd be pretty unlucky, wouldn't you? But if it happened, that's what. If we had one of them jobs and we got one of them calls, then it would be me that would be going to it for certain.
How many people listening have been called out Christmas Day or Boxing Day then? And been made to go by their boss?
No one.
To be fair, I've gone out and done field trials on Christmas Day and Boxing Day because we needed to get the data in, and you can't take a day off when you are in middle of a field trial. But I wasn't asked to do that or told to do that. I very much wanted to get that data out. So it depends on the employee as well, because some people just don't hold the same reverence, let's say, for Christmas. You're happy with a couple of days, but you don't really need, and especially I imagine people who are living on their own, who don't have a big family, being busy over the holidays is probably a bit of a respite, as opposed to just sat at home, watching everyone else be happy and merry, when you've
The
got
chicken drumstick.
Yeah, that's it.
We do, we
KFC
do
bargain
go
bucket
on
for yourself.
we do go on about it being important, don't we? But I was a young lad. I used to work in a pub, and I worked every Christmas, every New Year. Like, there's loads of people out there who work on Christmas Day, and it's not that, like, you got to go and do an hour's call. It's not the end of the world, is it? You're not putting in a fucking 14-hour shift, are you?
Well, in my two, because I've only actually ever had two real jobs, employed jobs. And in the first one, we worked a 12-hour shift Christmas night. So it's like not much fun, but got to do it. You got to do it, haven't you? Somebody's
I
got to
worked
do
them when
it.
I was a
Suck it
police
up.
officer. Obviously, they don't get days off. Yeah, I wouldn't answer the phone now on Christmas Day. I just wouldn't answer it.
So do you think this, going on to the subject, good boss, bad boss, do you think it's up to the boss to be on call, the one that does it, lead from the front, be the one rather than expect your men to do it?
Yeah.
Alex?
I would say that yes and no, in the sense that, yeah, if you are a small sort of like you and two other company, then yeah, you do have a burden of responsibility to show that you are, as involved with anything else. But at the same time, it's the right person for the right job. And Christmas Day doesn't necessarily need to be a, what we're saying, like it's not a punishment at the end of the day. It's simply just another day. So if you want to incentivize
I was
people
going to
to want
say,
people to volunteer, you could
I was
simply
going to say,
say,
it doesn't,
turn around and say, oh, sorry, what?
I thought you were going to say it doesn't have to be a sacred day. I was like, that's not quite the right.
Well, I was just thinking that. I know you say the right person for the right job, but say you had a Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh or something like that working for you who don't support Christmas. Does that mean that they should have to do Christmas Day?
There's a difference between should and giving someone the opportunity to work, because you can say, right, this is technically a bank holiday within the UK. If you want to work it time and a half double time because it is out of hours pay, then go for it. And if you've got someone who volunteers, that way they're happy, the company's happy, everyone's happy to be working the day. Come back, like, morale's high. You've not told anyone you have to do something. You've given them the opportunity, and they have electively chosen to do it themselves.
So then, if you give them it and they say no, I'm not bothered. I'm not doing it. I want the same. I want to be the same as everyone else. I want to be off on Christmas Day. Then, when it comes to their religious celebrations, do we have less tolerance for giving them the day off? And say, well, everybody else would want it off as well, or do we give them more tolerance for their religious days off when, as a Christian, you don't get it for yours? What's the right and wrong thing there?
No, I would say it's got less to do with religion, and
deep.
I'm talking of this in terms of, let's say you're asking someone to work a bank holiday weekend, or you're asking someone to work any of the other mandatory sort of like shutdown periods within the British working government. We can bring religion into this if you like. It's going to get really muddy and really messy if you do that. But the thing is
Go on, let's bring it in. Let's bring it in.
We don't have a mandatory shutdown for Eid or Ramadan or Diwali or anything like that. But we do have a mandatory shutdown around Easter. I don't know. I like to have Easter off. I eat Easter eggs over going to the Christian, or not the Christian, the any of the services around Easter. It's a bit hypocritical as well to say you want Christmas off because you're a religious person, whereas in reality, how many of us, the three of us here, have ever been to midnight mass in the last 10 years?
Every year.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. There we go.
No, but it's true, isn't it? If that's, do you know, this was one of the questions I got asked when I went to join the police. A very similar question, and I failed it fucking terribly. It was exactly the same question. It was, he said to us, when they are appointing you to a borough, if you are representative of that community, should we, and you can do a good job in that community, should we look to put you there? And I said, yeah, I think so. Like, in my head, I thought, you're going to a borough anyways, use your resources to the best of your ability. Makes sense, doesn't it? And he just looked at us and went, no, they get the same choice at any borough regardless. And then he went to us, do you even understand our equal opportunities policy? And I just looked and went, clearly not, but I guess you're going to teach us. And he went, yeah, we will, yeah. And I was like, all right, that's that then. I was like 18 and a half years old. And I can always remember thinking, like, world's gone crazy, hasn't it? Like, you've got someone who can do a far better job talking the native tongue, who can thingy, and you can't deploy them into the area where you need them. Like, it's just going the wrong way for me. Almost should be using people.
I think that's changed though, hasn't it? I think that's changed though, isn't it?
And I get their point, I get their point.
What? So if you've got a Polish-speaking Polish person, Pole, and you've got a Polish community, wouldn't you put a Polish police officer there so they can actually understand what the fuck's going on?
I think the difference between this is you can't tell the Polish police officer that is where you have to work because you are Polish, but you can say
you
there's
can.
an opportunity to work.
Good boss, bad boss. You do as I say.
Okay. You can't say you have to work there because this is the reason is because you're Polish. You can say, look, you this would be a better opportunity, a better fit. You can give them the opportunity, and they probably would go and work there anyway because it would be a better situation for them, and they could have a bigger impact. I think the difference is you can't tell them that because they're Polish, they have to work with Poles. That'd be like saying that because you're bald, you have to work with people who have
hang on, is that not the same as saying because you're a woman, you've got to work in a woman's refuge?
No, that's a woman's refuge saying we would prefer to have women. That's not you saying you're a woman, you have to work in the woman's refuge.
Have to, yeah, but you have to go and work there because that's what they want.
Yeah, okay, this is your round.
But
is the option
CUNT again?
Like the women's refuge is saying we need a woman to do this, so you turn around to your female employer and say the women's refuge is doing this. Would you feel comfortable doing this? No,
you don't. You could say you are going to go and do this.
Okay, you're doing this, but the thing they have the option to turn around and say no. This is this is a traumatic experience for me. I don't want to go there, and they have every right to say no. The problem comes about when you turn around and they say you're doing it regardless.
But say it's the police force. Would they have the right to turn around and say, no, I don't want to do that? It's like that's a bit like asking a soldier and saying, you're going to have to go to war in that trench. Don't really feel like that. I'm up to that, mate. I think I'll just stay back and do the cooking. It was
quite. I'll tell you, because later when I was a cop, later on after I'd failed that test terribly, I was asked to be the godfather for my nephew, and I asked for the day off, and they said no, not sending you. It's not important. We don't think this is important. It's like, all right, yeah. Anyways, good boss, bad boss.
Yeah, we'll go
We
on
all
that
had one of each, haven't we?
Only because somebody said that SPC Pest Control said they're rather tad confused. I'm like,
We're just basically winding Alex up, watching him watch them stress over inappropriate comments.
This appears to be what this podcast is very much. When the three of us get together, it is just there we go. So for anyone who's just tuned in and listening, what we're talking about today is good boss, bad boss, and I think where this is largely going to go is we're going to have a whole load of hypothetical situations thrown at us, and we're probably going to argue what is going to be. Thank you very much. The fishing of whether or not Wade Meister here is going to have some kind of embolism by the end of the night. But there we go. It's interesting though, because they say, you look at the statistics, the reason that people leave jobs is very rarely to do with the job or the role itself, and more often it is down to poor management, and people will leave a bad manager before they leave a bad job, which is interesting. So I mean, either of you two had, I mean, it's difficult for me to say because the vast majority of my life I worked with my father, so that is a a relationship that doesn't really trend in this. But you guys, good bosses, bad bosses? I mean, I'll ask you quickly, Hugh, who's the best boss you ever had?
well, like I say, I've only ever had 2 jobs, so it's quite difficult, really. I mean, probably depends. It just depends, doesn't it? When you say the best boss, it's a very hard thing to define, really. I mean, I had bosses that I liked, not necessarily the best bosses, but there was a guy that, whatever you thought of him, when I worked for Rentokil, called John McFarlane. He was a branch manager, and he was quite, not necessarily a good boss, but he was an inspiring person, and you looked up to him. Put it that way. There was another guy that was a good boss. That was John Gardner. He was a service manager in Rentokil. He was a really good, fair. He was a good, fair manager. He'd done a bit of a sharp, and he'd come up from the ranks, as it were. And he was good. He was fair. You didn't take the piss. He didn't take the piss. You'd do anything for him if he asked you. That sort of boss. But yeah, those 2 stick out. I haven't really had a bad boss.
So, but just to interject there,
I've worked with some wankers.
Haven't we all? But what's made them good? I mean, what in your mind is a good boss? Someone who is lenient, someone who is organized, someone who has your interests first, or someone who, because a lot of the time if we're talking bosses, are we talking bosses? Are we talking management? Are we talking supervisors? Direct reports, because all of them have a different responsibility within the company by far. Sean's and yours relationship with your employees is very different. I mean, I'd imagine that making sure that they had a paycheck at the end of the month is probably more important to you than ensuring that they were, let's say, telling jokes and having beers down the pub and being their mate. You want to make sure that they are employed gainfully before that you are, or am I wrong? Is that mates element more important than and you take the rough as you go along?
What do you think, Sean?
I think the responsibility of making sure their mortgage is paid always weighs heavy on my shoulders. And I've spoke about this before on a podcast, but one of the things that I picked up on, and I remember it intently, was Gordon Ramsay was doing one of these kitchen nightmares, and the boss was loved by everyone, absolutely loved by everybody. And the business was failing terribly because, they were eating the profits, they were drinking, they were stopping back after work. The morale was absolutely through the roof. But he was failing terribly as a businessman. I remember Gordon Ramsay come in and said, like, you're going to fail, don't you? You're like, 500,000 quid in debt or whatever, and blah blah blah. And he said, how much of a friend are you if they can't pay their mortgage at the end of this month? You know, and how much of a friend are they to you if they're willing to allow that to happen for you to lose everything? And that hit me quite hard, and I always fall back on that when it comes to a decision making, because it's easy to say, go and do what you want, and you know, I'll support you and blah blah blah. And we do try to support them, don't get us wrong, but in the same breath, you have to understand that there comes a point when you are responsible for paying their mortgage. And I've found that being a boss has hardened me as a person, more than probably most experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There has to be an element of it's a very fine line to walk, isn't it? You need to have
Yeah.
that ability to, you looking after them, you want the best for them, but at the same time, sometimes I don't know. I think the credit is cruel to be kind. You've got to sometimes be firm. Again, not firm, but you might need to make decisions which are better for the company and better for more people involved than necessarily each individual person. So once again, you go back and you say that, was I allowed that day off for my godson's christening or whatever it was? And looking back on it from the lens now of a boss, a manager, knowing what knowing what you knew and knowing what he knew. If there was a big thing on, if there was something that required all hands on deck on that day, put it in perspective now. Can you understand why that manager turned around to you and said, no, it's not important enough in order for you to sort of like take the day off, because there are bigger priorities at play here? I mean,
I know exactly why he said no, that bloke.
Okay, I'm sure it's because
yeah,
it's going to be a prick or
I
something. He
know
doesn't like
exactly
you.
what you're saying, that you definitely have to look at that bigger thing. And I think that's the hardest thing in the world for an employee to do, isn't it? Because every employee, with exceptions, but as a general rule, every employee will look at every situation in terms of what is the most beneficial to them. And every employee will have the belief that they are incredibly important to the business, which they absolutely are, but they don't, they only see it from their point of view. And you've got to balance, in my opinion, and this is what is difficult about being a boss, is you have to balance that with the needs of the business, because the needs of the business, in my eyes, have to come before everything. Because if the business fails, then they don't have a job. So you have to, you have to think, what, it's not what I want. It's not what I want. It's not what they want. It's what the business wants. And then if the business is doing well, which hopefully it is, then you get more leeway to give them more of the things that they want and more ability to do, different things, and, and push from there. But you have to keep your mind on exactly why you are there. And that's the hard thing, because you can't see that.
But that's the responsibility of a business owner, isn't it? That's the responsibility of it. That doesn't necessarily make you a good boss or a bad boss. That's actually just the responsibilities that you've got. When that, of course, that is part of being the boss. Is actually, well, no, that's more being a manager, isn't it? Rather than than leading your team. That's a different scenario. Leading your team is a different thing than managing the business. So the thing about being a good boss to me is that the people that work with you, or I mean, that's not something I never say somebody works for us. They work with us. I can't stand it when people say, "Oh, he works for me." No, he works with you. Because if they're not there, then but there has to be that. For me, it's all about you respect a good boss. He shouldn't have to tell you to do something; just ask you.
I think
sorry, go on.
Yeah, we've been over this before. This is the difference between, a boss, a manager, and a leader. A boss will sort of like demand that people do things. They will make demands of time. They'll make demands of people's loyalty. But a leader will they will just simply ask, and people will want to do it. There is no demand. It's the same question, but the ethos behind it is simply different. One is a demand. It's telling. It's got an element of sort of like obligation, if you like, and the other one is simply, I would like you to do this thing, and the other person has sufficient affection and respect and loyalty for that person that they will do it regardless. I need you to stay late. It's a difference between, you have to stay late and can you stay late? And the answer may be yes in both terms, but the way in which you get there is very different.
See, I was never, although I never joined the army, I was always going to, and I was from a very young age. I was trained in the army cadets, and I was trained how to lead people all the way through. You work your way up through. It teaches you certain things: respect, lead from the front, don't ask people to do something you're not prepared to do yourself. Teaches you how to train people. I didn't join because they didn't give they didn't offer me what I wanted, but it was just as well because I nearly ended up in a wheelchair anyway. So I don't think they'd want a soldier in a wheelchair. but
Hell on wheels.
Actually that sort of like 8-9 years I was in the army cadets. I believe that set me up forever. Really, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily a good boss or a leader, but I'd like to think so, but I wouldn't say it's. I don't know. It's hard, isn't it?
So, for a little bit of fun, I have done a good old Google for some, HR management case studies here, and so I'm going to ask both of you guys this question and see what comes out of it here. So the first one is called the brilliant jerk. So what would you do in this situation? There is a high sales, high performing individual within your company, but they consistently bully their colleagues and ignore management. And it's got to a point now where it's impacting team morale. So both of you guys, as owners of businesses, good boss, bad boss. And Hugh's disappeared off. There we go. He's disappearing. Well, I'll re-ask him. But okay, we'll start with you, Sean. What would you do in that situation? You've got someone who's obviously good. They're making a lot of money, but they are being, they're a bully and they're ignoring your instructions.
I tell this to my lads all the time. I say there's a right solution, but there's a right time for a right solution. Timing is more important than what you actually do, I believe, in most cases. So you can start. I find that what happens is someone who's a bully or exceptionally clever like that, what I hear there is that the person is probably quite intelligent. He's quite articulate to get to where he is. And there's probably an underlying reason why he's being a jerk. So I think to myself, all right, I will sit and wait. And then what I would probably do is wait for that opportunity for me to sort of give him a bit of a nudge. And then I think that's it. Can I say, no, I would just be a prick with him at one point. And as soon as he flared up, which I guarantee you that type of person would, I'd go, it's class, that, isn't it? Brilliant, isn't it? Because yesterday you done that. Yesterday you've done that, and I think you're worth more. But you tell me, is that if this is the best that you can behave, if this is what your parents have brought into this world, and you genuinely believe your attitude's okay, then carry on. But I think you're worth more than that, and then I'll just walk away and leave him. And if that doesn't work, he's gone. And if he doesn't have the self-awareness, or it's going to take, he's going to be destructive. There's only two types of actions in the world, isn't there? Constructive and destructive. And if you've exhausted every possibility that you can, and his actions are still destructive, then the writing's on the wall, isn't it? But you've got to, I believe it's all to do with timing and how you approach a situation. Very rarely do I find that dealing with a problem at that time, when it comes to HR, is the right thing to do. That's what I find anyways, because God, Allah, Ultimate Warrior, whoever you believe in, just straight fate or whatever. It's funny that when you don't fly off the handle at someone for being a prick, that within about no time at all, a situation will arise that presents itself where you go like, oh, let's have a think about this, shall we? You know, like someone's got to stop late. It's your turn. Oh no, he's not stopping. Why not? Why do you think? Do you know what I mean? Why do you think he's not stopping late? And then you can sort of start to push things that way, or you can pull them to one side, can't you? And go, you know, not being funny, mate. You're letting yourself down. You're a good person. I can see that, but you're letting yourself down. Pack it in. Pack
I
it
mean,
in.
you hope that they are a good person at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. Listen, if you're saying he's a bad person, and we don't have space for bad people, like, yeah.
This is your hypothetical, but there we go. Right, we're going to ask Hugh's back in, so let's add him to the stage. Hey, Hugh, can you hear us again now?
Yeah, computer's been a prick.
Ah, good stuff. So go on. Let's hear your answer to this. The brilliant jerk scenario, which is basically you've got a very high performing employee. They bring in a lot of money. They're very good at what they do, but ultimately they're a bit of a bully and they don't take orders and direction very well. So how do you deal with that? Are you good boss, bad boss? I mean, how do you deal with that person?
Not had to do that really, but I'd probably just ask them to pop round the office and have a chat, and we talk about it. And I'd say, I'd point out certain situations, ask them how they dealt with it, what happened, and did they actually honestly think that that was acceptable?
Yeah. What the fuck are you doing, boy?
Yeah,
Alex just went into a bit of a black accent there. He started doing it. Did you notice that?
That was not.
It absolutely was. You just started doing cool runnings there, didn't you?
No. I did a funny voice, and it was definitely not me doing an accent at all whatsoever. Right. Okay. I found some other really good ones here. So, I mean,
Yeah,
the flip
just
side of
before
that.
you move on from that, though,
Yeah.
we are looking at the person who's being a jerk as a problem, aren't we?
Yes, this is what I'm about to say.
But if you're employed as a manager on a lot more money, and your job is to manage them problems, if that is habitually and consistently turning into that him being a jerk, then are you doing what you're getting paid for? That would be my question.
And this is my sort of like point to close this, which is if a person is persistently and consistently being a disruptive influence to this team, and not just to the team, but to you as well. They're not listening to what you're saying. Okay, they're bringing in money for the company, but they're also fostering a toxic work environment. If you carry on giving them latitude, if you carry on sort of like trying to pull them over, win them over, and the rest of it, what happens then is what happens when the other employees, and to be fair, ditch the jerk. What happens when the other employees see you spending a lot of time pandering to this individual? Yeah, it's okay, let's work on this together, to the exclusion of them. They want to be uplifted. They want to be helped. They want to be assisted as well. And all they're seeing is when this person kicks off, when this person sort of like causes trouble, they get the attention. Whereas you, who are doing the best that you can, although that's not as good as jerk face over there, you get ignored and you get passed over, and you do not get to get invited to the events to show that you are a more trustworthy individual. And I was always taught that in any group of people, there is, any group of employees, as a manager, there is 20% of those who you say, right, we're going to go storm the gates of hell, and they'll be like, we'll be back in 15 minutes with our, Wellington boots and 3 canoes. There's then 60% of the people who they're there for the money, and they couldn't really care. And then there's 20% of the people out there that if you were to buy them a Ferrari, they would accuse you of trying to give you a speeding ticket. And the problem is we are, as managers and bosses, you see that lower 20%, and you want to win them over, you want to get them on board, so you give them a lot of time. And all that happens is that 60% in the middle say, well, you know what, it's difficult to get to the top, but if I act like an asshole, I get a lot more attention. I get a lot more sort of like fuss. I get a lot more liberties, because look how far they've pushed the envelope. I can get away with a lot more. So yeah, sometimes, it's about ditching the jerk and just simply saying, I'm not going to win this person over. And the fact that they are bringing in 1.5 times the amount of money as everyone else is probably because they're making everyone else sad, and everyone else's, turnover is dropped by 1/3. Get rid of them, you might find that everyone's productivity leaps through the roof, and you're doing better than not.
What
Just
is it
a
they
thought.
say in the police, Sean? If somebody's a bad employee and promote them or something?
Oh, fastest way, yeah. Fastest way to get rid of a problem is to promote them, isn't it? They used to say that all the time. And that might be a sort of lateral promotion or what have you, but that is the fastest way to get rid of a prick. That's what I was told over and over again. So you'd see these people that go from uniform to CID, and then they get bounced from office to office. You think they've got loads of opportunities, and it's like, no, each office is doing their regulatory 3 to 4 months, 5 months with them, and then they're like,
Okay.
we think you'd really be suited over here, like that would be great for you. And then the off gone, next one. You should always be very careful of someone who appears to be high flying, because they just, they'll
Do you
shift
think?
them around.
Do you think that would happen in a large corporate, like let's just say?
Well, Alex has got a good job now, so we better be careful what we're saying.
Well, I was just thinking, the majority of pest control companies.
What are you saying, Hugh? What are you saying, you horrible man? I can't believe you're picking on Alex like that.
We all pick on me. I didn't even realize he was picking on me. It happens so often here. All right.
I was just thinking, if because the most pest control companies are quite small and they're quite tight knit, aren't they? We're only talking probably anything between, once you're over a sole trader, 2 to sort of 10 people. I mean, I would suggest 10 technicians is, quite a few technicians to look after, really. So we're only probably talking, I don't know what the average company size is, maybe 5 people, maybe, I don't know. Do you think you get
depends
that?
on the industry, but I think in our industry,
Pest control. Our industry, really.
By far and away, the majority, I think 60-70% of our companies are what we call micro businesses, so 5 people or less.
Yeah, so I wonder if you get the same. You don't probably get that same chance to shift somebody over if they're shit. You're going to have to deal with it, aren't you?
Well, yeah, this is it. You can't promote them past the problem, can you? So, you are going to have to deal with it. Which kind of brings me on to the next question, which is the reverse of this, which is going to be equally interesting. So we've just dealt with the brilliant jerk, someone who's a high flyer but an asshat. What do you do with someone who is the exact opposite of that, like the lovable slacker? Someone who is universally liked, they're trustworthy, they're a great team player, but consistently they miss targets or produce mediocre work. What do you do with that? What do you do with someone who's that way, on the seesaw, on the balance? Let's go Hugh first.
It's easier to slow someone down than speed someone up. So I think if you've got the jerk that's producing, it's a hell of a lot easier to get them into line than it is to get a lazy person to. In fact, I don't believe you'll ever get a lazy person to be motivated, or I've certainly not seen that happen. I think laziness is bred into them somewhere it's just incredibly difficult to deal with, and I don't think you'll get them there. I would be a lot more worried about the lazy, nice person in my business than I would anything else. That would, well, they wouldn't. I can tell you now, we wouldn't tolerate that.
See, I was watching none of our guys that work for us, but I was watching somebody the other day, and some guy was just stood there, and it's strange, isn't it? And I think it's maybe it's an age thing, but I was always taught, if you've got nothing to do, just look like you're doing something. Pick up a brush and just stand there.
If you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not necessarily a good boss, bad boss thing. So, what targets are you giving your techs?
Get it done. Just get it done.
Okay.
If you can't get it done, if you can't get it done, give us a call and tell us you can't get there, and then I'll know deep down whether you are shirking or whether you can't get there.
So
Neophobia to work.
that's why, yes, Majestic Wildlife says it's a neophobia to work. So I would argue, I mean, so to close this one off, and then I do have something important to say after this, but close this one off, you've got to think, are you giving them the right jobs? I mean, if you're setting someone up to fail, then have you succeeded at the end of the day? If this person are they truly lazy, or have you simply just assigned them the wrong tasks? Is there going to be something that they are infinitely better at? Because obviously they are a positive influence to the team. They're liked, they're good for morale. People like having them around. So is there a better role that you could have them? You find that you look through their past performances and you say, look, actually you're only doing really badly when we give you the rural and agricultural jobs because you don't like, X, Y, and Z. Maybe if you're finding some more of the urban roles, then you might be a little bit better.
I guarantee you now, if you had a team of 10 people, you had one who was a go-getter but an horse, and one who was lazy but great, and you ask the staff, who should we keep and who should we get rid of? They'll say the nice one, and they'll get rid of the horse. And then you turn around and you say, okay, the financial side of this is the one that you get used pay the financial burden of. So when his money coming in is reduced by whatever, and we lose it, that comes off your pay packet. And when the nice guy there, who is draining because he's not producing anything, like if we get rid of him, your pay packet goes up. I will guarantee you 100% when you explain it like that, the other 8 members of the team will get rid of the lazy one and keep the hard worker. I guarantee you.
I would argue that as if it was a binary situation, which are we getting rid of? Which headcount are we reducing? But if you're trying to solve the situation, then you need to understand the root cause of it. Which kind of brings me on to the second point, which is, like, if you give someone a task and you don't properly explain what to do. So let's say I ask you to paint a bedroom, a room, or the rest of it, and I've got a whole load of tins of paint on the floor, and I say, hey, paint this room green. And you walk off and you come back and you don't check in on them, you don't ask them how they're doing, you don't sort of like do any kind of checks in on you come in, and you find that they've painted the room the wrong color green. There's 4 greens on the floor and they've taken their best initiative, they've got their work done, but it's the wrong green. They're fucked up, they've wasted an entire day doing that. Whose fault is that? Is it yours or is it theirs?
The thing is with pest control, when you've got a technician, you rely to a certain extent on their own self-discipline, don't you? An initiative. You don't say, well, I think some companies do say, there's your 15 routines, that's what you will do today. But that's not really the way that we've ever done it. We would like the technicians to run their own rounds and know what they've got to do, rather than just tell them and micromanage you. And the last thing you want is for a technician to have to phone up between calls and go, where am I going next? Oh, you're going to XYZ. Go and do that one, then I'll tell you where you're going next. You want them to get that. So you can't really take that instruction to a definitive, can you? Because again, there was a situation today when one of the guys saw that there was a job for one of the other guys, but he was closer. So he phoned up and said, do you want me to go and do that one while I'm literally going past the door, rather than have to say that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I agree. If there is, but we can't necessarily talk in extremity, because micromanagement is awful. It gets in the way of getting things done. Nobody has anything, and if you are reliant on someone else to manage every facet of your day, then you may as well do it yourself, and you cease leading, and you more like just do. But yeah, there needs to be a balance. Absolutely, there needs to be middle ground, but you can't, like, initiative only goes so far. Like I say, if I said paint that room red and blue, and you paint the walls red and the skirting blue, and I don't come back until the end of that job and say, no, I meant paint the walls blue and the skirting red, that could have all been avoided if I'd come back in within 15-20 minutes to see what they're doing. I could have, right, oh no, sorry, my bad, did not explain myself clearly enough there, I meant the other way around. And you've solved the problem when it is this big, as opposed to a whole room's worth of problems.
Are the comments syncing okay? Because I can only see.
I think
some of
people
the
are just
comments.
listening, man. I think people are just sat there being like, "What the f is going on here? Like, what are we
Nobody
doing?"
Nobody's-
I don't know why, but the ones which are on screen are late. So yeah, I don't know why, but
We haven't
that's
actually
fine.
asked anybody listening yet whether they've had a good boss or a bad boss, have we? I think we're going to have
Tell
to.
you what I am interested in. Matt Rolfs put a thing on saying what I said wasn't a target, which is correct. We operate differently. But he said that's not a target. I would love to know what your targets were, or if you were a boss, Matt, what targets you would set for your lads and what you would expect out of them.
Right.
That would be very interesting.
So while we're waiting for that, you two, Sean, you've got 2 lads, and Hugh, what have you got? You're now 4, 3, 4 guys?
4, 4, I think. Yeah, 4.
4. So do you do annual performance reviews with your team?
No, not
Why
at the
not?
We
moment.
did one last year and we'll do one this year. We'll do it at the end of the year, or probably the start January time. Be about right, I think.
Because we're talking about KPIs, we're talking about sort of like things. How do you gauge, therefore, improvement as you as a boss? And I think a really big part of being a good boss is being able to advocate for your staff, to be able to show that they are progressing, to be able to show that they are moving in the right direction, they are learning, they are happy, they're healthy, they are given the opportunities, ultimately to go and create their own companies, because you don't want to, you want to give them that opportunity to be better than they are. But how can you prove that, or how can you measure that you are effectively doing that if you are not gauging in any way that person's performance or their perceived performance?
You can gauge somebody's performance without actually having them in to the office. I know, we know at any one stage where everybody is, and I just I can look at the workload to know that what their performance is like in that front. And we've got small enough team that, I mean, I speak to the guys every day, so I can gauge what's going on. Without actually having to drag them in. And I hope that they would just, with the continual conversations, say if there's something wrong. I'd hope they would. I'm sure Matt would.
Let me put this another way, because of course it's a very small chain with you guys, and yeah, arguably you are correct, which is you know what's going on because you have the finger on the pulse, because it's you and 3 other guys. Imagine your company was a bit larger and you had each of your 3 guys, each of your 2 guys had 5 guys underneath them. How would how would you then be able to gauge, because you're the person signing off the bonuses, you're the person signing off the promotions, how those 20 or 10 people that one substratum down are doing? How do you do that? Because you obviously are not speaking to them every single day.
I must say, as a technician for Rent-A-Kill and as a supervisor for Rent-A-Kill, I never had a single assessment. Was never called to the office to have a review or anything. Never.
Did you ever have positive praise at the end of the year? Thank you very much. You've worked really, really hard. No. Would it have meant a lot if you had done that? Would it have meant more to you to have received that validation?
Show me the
of
money.
Your efforts? Okay, that's very mercantile of you. I appreciate that.
I just think my gut feeling is that if you're waiting for the end of the year to tell them well done, or you're waiting for the end of the year to give them an arm around them or a kick up the arse or whatever it is, then you're probably a shit manager. That's my gut feeling. I think your end of year thing is probably just a way of noting things down for future possible issues rather than it being constructive. Which is great. We need to do it. What's Matt Rolfe said, I'm given a set number of sites to visit, predominantly domestic call-outs, and often too much to fit in within, what's that? Is this Matt who used to work with you yet? Fit in within the contracted hours. Beyond what that I receive no official targets. If I were to set targets in pest control, it would be perhaps to generate additional sales per job. Where required drain surveys, loft clearance. I would like to know what targets people have and if they are realistic and relevant. So the one thing I would say is smart in it. Has everyone heard Al, you do that? You're good at shit like that. Smart objectives in it.
Yes. I mean, it depends on which way you mean smart. There's a couple of different smart methodologies you have. You've got your bits and bobs, but yeah. So What are you meaning by smart? In this
So
instance?
they always say when you set your targets, they should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and
Okay,
timely.
yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
like, if they're giving you that, and it's very difficult for a manager if you go back to them and say these are not smart objectives, or if your boss gives you a job that you don't think you can get done for whatever reason, if you ask for smart objectives of it, specific, I want to know what I need to do. It's measurable. How are you measuring this? Is it attainable? Is it relevant? And is it timely? Have I got the time to do it? Then it's very difficult for a boss to say no or to not explain one of those 5 things in it, I think.
Well, there's no point in fucking turning around to your technician and say, I want 25 routines tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's just like, mate, if you're going to be stupid like that, I'm not going to bother. It's just silly. They've got to be achievable. They can be stretched, like stretch targets, but in the first instance, they've got to be achievable. So then if over 6 months you're doing just say 10 routines a day, and that looks like that's a breeze, you can stretch it and then say, well, actually, you've done 10 routines a day for 6 months. How about we push it to 11 routines? That's not a good example, but something along those lines maybe. But I know.
Sorry, Phil. I was going to say I can feel in Matt's comment there's a bit of frustration, and the one thing I would say, Matt, whenever that happens is when you ask other people, especially technicians, asking other technicians, I promise you now, the worst thing you can do is believe the technician that tells you how he is dealt with. It's an absolute nightmare, because I'll give you a prime example. Technician's talking to one of my lads, this is true, and he says to him, oh, we get given sales bonuses. So if we sell a domestic contract, we get with 7%. And you're like, all right, no bother. That if we sell a contract at 7%, you're like, all right, that's great. Can we go on that? And I'm like, yeah, you can, yeah. You sell a contract, get you 7%, I'm okay with that. What the technician didn't tell him was that they have to hit a minimum number of visits every day to get the 100%, don't they? And if they fall under that, then they go to the 80. If they fall under that, then they get 0. So it was like, I can't remember, I think you had to hit like 10 visits a day or something at the big corporates to get your 100% bonus on that. If you went under your 10, you'd get 80. If you went under 8 visits a day on average, you'd get 0, no matter what you sold. So what we found consistently when my technicians have spoken to other technicians, that they will always tell you the positivity, because misery loves company. They want you to feel like you're, but then the same, I don't mind telling you, there was a particular technician talking to one of my lads, and he was telling about how well he was doing and how much money he was making, and he was great. And he was a gazillionaire, this lad, absolute gazillionaire. Same bloke was on the phone to me about 2 hours later, not knowing that my lad was in the van, on speakerphone, ringing us up asking for a job because he was skint because he couldn't get anything. And he might have been earning a bit of money, but he was doing every hour that God sent to get it. So just be very, very mindful when you hear technicians talking about stuff, because in my experience, very rarely do they give you the true overview of what's going on. Andy Beddoes, we once give a chap a £5 bonus. 3 weeks later, he was asked why his tracker showed him at home at 3 every day, even when there was calls to be done. He said to us, if you can afford to give me 500 quid for no particular reason, you're making too much money. He wasn't with us for that long after.
Well, that's just a moronic thing to do, and that's called Darwinism. Sorry. Your company rewards good behaviour, so you act like a dickhead. Yeah, absolutely. It's if you're going to begrudge the success of your colleagues and company as opposed to exalt them, then you are not. That's not the right fit for you.
Nobody in the comments has actually said though what they think makes a good boss.
Okay, I can give you what I think makes a good boss while we wait. I think a good boss is somebody who wants to see you succeed,
Hang on,
both financially.
Let's go round. Let's go round, and we'll each name one quality that we think
Okay.
a good boss should have. So, Alex, one quality.
That's that they want to see you succeed.
Daddy, make sure your bills are paid every month. That you are never waiting for your wages.
Respect. They respect you and you respect them.
Go on
Any
out.
more, Alex?
We're going to keep going. Oh shit. Okay. Someone who and we're talking more than the micro businesses. So we're talking larger organisations with a chain going all the way to sort of like
Anybody that leads you, or
yeah. Well, no. I'm now putting myself in a situation where it's
sorry.
not just me
Yeah.
talking to a boss who is the owner of a company, to me talking to my manager who reports to a manager and the rest of it. I would say then that someone who is willing to sort of fight your corner within that hierarchy, who's not going to just sort of like let shit roll downhill, that they will actually stand up for you and their team in a way that is, productive and they're a shit shield basically at the end of the day, and they stand up for you, they defend you, they champion you to people who may not necessarily see you down that chain of hierarchy.
I think the one I would say, Susan's just good boss as a leader. They're good listeners and will be firm when needed. I think the firm is absolutely the thing that, and I'm not trying to be antagonistic with employees when I say this. I'm trying to give you the ability to see it from another set of thing. But that firmness, I think that comes down to good decision making, even when it's going to make you unpopular. I think that's an absolute quality of a good boss, that he can turn around and say, I know they ain't going to like this, but this is what's going to keep the roof over there. This is what's going to keep the wheels turning. This is the bigger picture. And even though they can't see it, you know that you're doing the right thing at that time for them, not for you, for them. Because if you do the right thing for the business, it keeps them there. I think that.
Hugh?
I've got another odd question. Do you
No,
think
you've got to give your reason as well. You can't.
Oh,
you can't be like.
Sorry. Oh no, I've got another. So what have we had? We've had respect.
Come on, Gloria, you can do it. You got that.
I like that. That's top level shithousery. That I like that. That's really good.
Look, he's very pleased with himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got his own bar.
High five.
What else?
Okay.
What else? I don't know. I think that's a good cover actually. But what I was going to say was, do you think that your boss should know how to do the job?
They should know how to do their job, which is a very different thing. Now, see, I understand what you're saying here, which is if you're sending someone out to go and fix bird netting and sort of like clear drains and put drain cameras down the floor, or fix bird netting, or fill rodent boxes, there is, and I'll put my hand up here. There is a misconception that your boss needs to be able to do your job as good as, if not better than you. Because you hear a lot of the time, I don't respect him because he wouldn't know the first thing about installing a bird net. He wouldn't know the first thing about sort of like snaking a drain. He wouldn't know the first thing about doing this. And realistically speaking, no, but that's not their job. That is not their job. Is potentially to be, with you guys, your job is to do the job and manage the people. But in a larger structure, in a larger hierarchy, their job is to manage the people, to manage the workflows, to manage all of those other facets and tasks that keep a company functioning and moving and operating as an efficient entity at the end of the day. And that doesn't necessarily mean them having to go out and do a pest control routine. They just need to have to understand what it entails. They don't have to be able to do it. They don't have to be able to do it well. And that's my opinion.
I think you should be able to do your job. Yeah, I definitely think you should.
No, your job or their job. That's
their
the
job.
Your job, I think. But I think where we're probably getting a bit disconnected here is I don't think that should carry on up the chain of command. I think it only really needs to go one person up. So the technician, the manager of the technician should be capable of doing the technician's job, and but then the manager of the manager, the director of what it is, doesn't have to do that. He should just be able to be, the manager. So I think it's on one step, but I genuinely believe, hand on my heart, that a good boss on one step up should be capable of doing the job of the person underneath them. I really do.
I am the production manager of a large factory that makes specialized handles on industrial lathes. Do
Yeah.
I have to understand how to make a handle in order to make sure that that factory runs smoothly and efficiently?
Yeah, but there'll be somewhere between you and the
No,
person
no,
making the handle. Does that make
no.
sense?
I'm saying that there's not. I'm saying that there's a supervisor between us. But the thing is, does the supervisor have to know how to do my job? I can do the supervisor's job. The supervisor's not working the machines.
Yeah, no, as long as the supervisor can do that man's job. I'll take you to the story of Elon Musk, and I can remember watching him, and he said when Tesla was going bust, he literally slept under his desk for 4 months, so that he would go to every station and understand every process in like integrally, because he wanted to understand exactly what was going on. But also he said that it let everybody know that they were in it together. And I think that just being a boss and going, oh yeah, I know this and I can put A and B together is great. But I think being a boss is a far more deeper spiritual thing, where they have to understand that, you said it earlier, shit won't roll down hills, that it's your shoulders that are going to come to bear on any problem that's arise. So I think you absolutely need to know how to do it.
I would caveat that with, do you expect then your staff to be able to do your job? So let's say,
You
for
can tell
example,
that Jason
and you're
Bird's been in the army.
yes, I
Hasn't
mean,
he?
so this is it. So this used to
Don't
be my
expect your
opinion as
teams
well.
to.
And genuinely, this used to be my opinion as well until I had a team. And then I went on to some leadership courses, I went on to some management courses and the rest of it. And one of the clear things that came out with is there are things that you can do that they cannot do. Either because you have the responsibility to do them, you have the training to do them, or you have the license and agency to be able to do those things. You can do them and they can't, as their manager. Now, the thing is if you are spending all of your time doing their job just to prove that you can do their job, then who is doing your job whilst you are fucking about doing their job? If they are understaffed, if your team doesn't have enough people, it's not down to you to breach that gap. It's down to you as a manager to find the right people to then plug that hole, because nobody is going to move from that strata up to cover you whilst you are stepping down to do a job that is not what you are being paid to do.
I get that, but I think, again, for me, when I hear stuff like that, I think this is a poor manager, because he's put himself in a position where he hasn't spotted that problem coming 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, because problems very rarely, very, very rarely go wrong without any warning. The warning signs are always there. It's whether you choose to listen to them, like.
So at that point,
So then, if you get in a position where that person's not available to do that job, then there's been some fucking bad management going on with regards to planning, and you look after him, he looks after you, and
yeah, but I mean, that's got nothing to do with you being able to do their job. That's got, and again, if you're sat there spending if you're out in the van doing a technician's role and you're not in the office managing and looking, then
right.
you miss that
I'm not
happening.
saying you should be doing their job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should be doing their job. I'm saying you should be able to. There's a big difference. I'm not suggesting that you go out and you do 8 hours every week doing pest control technician stuff. I'm not saying that at all.
But that's exactly what people in the comments are assuming here, which is you should be able to do it, and you should do it, though.
You should understand how it's done, I think.
Yeah, you should
understand the basic principles of it, at least.
Oh, yeah.
At the very least.
You should understand how to do it, but there's a gaping chasm between having a working knowledge of how to do it and physically going out and doing it to prove that you can do it.
Put it this way:
again, if you sorry, just to clarify, if you are doing your staff's wage job for them, then they shouldn't have a job because you're doing it. But you should be capable of, it, worst comes, because I always think to myself, you can't put a bird net up and you're looking after a team of lads who do bird netting, and then like, I don't know, say that something happens and you can only get in on a Saturday and there's you and him who can do it. You should be able to pick them tools up, and get stuck in. Who was it? Came on the other week. He's doing the app now, John Dixon.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And I can remember, if you look back at that podcast, one of them said that about him. They said, didn't they? Our managers were blah, 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 but they're also willing to pick up a shovel and shovel shit with you when it was needed.
And I think the other thing, of course, is if you've done, this is a different tact again, if you've actually done the job, you actually know all of the ways of getting around the job.
Yeah.
Because when I was made a supervisor, there was such a thing. It was quite new. Rentokil brought out handheld scions.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'd done the job, I knew exactly how to skive, or how they could be skiving, because I'd done the job and I knew how the scion worked. So because of that, I could see when people were fucking about. Whereas probably if you hadn't done the job, you couldn't recognize that particular trait. So
let me pose this in another way then. Through your argument there, it says that realistically speaking, the hierarchy of a business should always be a trickle up effect, where you have people who excel, that get promoted, who do well, that get promoted, and because they are moving up through the ranks like Sharp, as you said, getting the promotions from infantry to general, that general would be better than any other general. But realistically speaking, the skills involved in leadership are not necessarily the same skills required for deployment and for achieving that business's goals. A lot of the times you look at CEOs, you look at people who are parachuted into these businesses, come from completely arbitrary left field professions, because they have been trained in finance, or they've been trained in business management, or they've been trained in these other things, because their job therefore is to run the company as efficiently as possible. Would you expect the CEO of Rentokil to be able to do anything? Pest controlling? No. But even the people underneath him? No. There is a point where, realistically speaking,
imagine you're back at Pelgor, right, with your dad,
Yep.
and you are working the line making rodenticide blocks, and he dropped someone in who is a manager who's never made a rodenticide block before. He's never done anything. You know as well as I do that the chance of that turning into a clusterfuck is absolutely massive. He should know, and I'm not saying he should be on the line, but he should know how to produce that block.
Right. That genuinely did 100% happen when we're there. And no, and I'll say, because it actually flies in the face of what you're saying. So when my father, I worked alongside my father for years and years and years, and then my father retired, and I did genuinely want his role while I was there, but I was not given the opportunity to his role, and a gentleman instead called Sandy Mackay was brought in from a completely different industry, not pest control whatsoever. He was brought in from a sister industry, and he moved into that role. He'd never done a pest control in his life. He'd never made a wax block. He'd never. And either way, he moved in. And lo and behold, I think it's 8 years later now, he's still there. He's still doing very, very well, because what he brought to that role were skills that I could never have brought to that role, because I'd never had the exposure to those industries. I'd never had the exposure or the ability to learn all the pathways. But what he had was me. He had a team of me and a team of me underneath who were able to teach him these things about the industry. But I would never have been able to learn the things that he brought to this business by any way, shape, or form. And at the time I was bitter, but I understand that now. He was brought in to plug an intellectual gap within this business. And I was there to support him on the bits that he didn't know about our industry. They made the right decision, although I disagree with them.
I agree at that level. The point I'm trying to make is that Sandy's not the boss of the man on the line making the blocks. Do you know what I mean? He's the boss of you further up the chain, and that was there. The question is, should the boss be able to do the job of the person below him? And I think he should. But I don't see Sandy. If you said to Sandy, what's the name of the people making the wax blocks on your line, he'd probably go, I don't fucking know.
I suppose
Sue, thingy, whatever.
It depends on
I'm
the size
talking
of the
about
business.
person who's directly responsible.
If you're a small business, then yeah, and don't get me wrong, if you're a small business, then everyone needs to be able to chip in and do everyone else's roles. But genuinely, when you get to a business above a certain size, you need those people to be specialists in what they do. I mean,
it's how many
not even
people are
how
above, isn't it?
it's not even how many people are above. I know for a fact that, you know, in my current
Positions.
role, the people who are immediately above me do not have the same level of skill or expertise when it comes to pest management. But what they are bringing is they're bringing in a corporate expertise that I have no experience with whatsoever. And they are able to navigate that environment and look after me. And that's their role. They're looking after me, and they're making sure that when they are asked a question about rodent control or cockroach control or fleas or bugs or ticks or whatever, that they have a team of people underneath that they know well enough that they can say, right, pick you up, put you in that box, pick you up, put that in that box. They don't need to know the answer. They know that the people that they have underneath them are able to do this for them, and that's their skill, is being able to understand that particular facet. It changes radically when you get to large companies, but I fully appreciate what you're saying, which is in smaller companies, everyone needs to be able to lean on everyone else, otherwise there's an unfair distribution.
I don't think what I'm saying here is coming across, because I agree with you, but I don't think I don't think you understand the point I'm trying to make about whether your boss should be able to do your role. I'm talking
I
about
do understand it. I just don't agree.
So you think that there could be one man who has never killed a rat, doesn't understand how to kill rats,
Yep.
has no idea at all, who gets 10 technicians for killing rats, and you think that that would be acceptable?
Because if their job was to make sure that those technicians could get from their homes to their jobs to the next job to the next job, they don't necessarily need to know how to kill a rat. They simply need to know how to get a human being from one job to the next job. And admittedly, they might need some steerage on how long that job's going to take. But that's why you have a team of technicians underneath you. And a good boss will turn around and say, right, this job, how long does it take? This job, how long does it take? And it takes steerage, and they learn from the people underneath them. Not, you know, they don't have to have done that job.
But
yeah,
but listen, this is the point I'm making to you. Through the people below him, he learns how to do that job.
yes,
How long does it
yes,
take you to do this?
You don't have to know it to begin with.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is the person above, maybe he's not immediately, but he has to learn how to do the job of the person directly below him. Otherwise, you're fucked. Because I've seen it a million times. I've seen it a million times, especially in the police. What you would get is you would get a superintendent who had been a cop for 18 months to a year, blasted through the ranks, and then had absolutely no idea how to be a police officer. And he would come in and he would start shouting and bawling about his expectations, because he'd be like, we should be doing this, 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 and this. And you're like, mate, you haven't got a clue. You haven't got a Scooby-Doo about how to do this, you know? Like, and this is what happens in it when the top bosses start setting KPIs for people at the bottom, because they have no understanding at all of the pressures upon them.
And that's I totally agree. And that's you know, a radical leap from A to B. And that's it. And that's why we have a hierarchy in place and a chain of command. So you have these filter up, filter down sort of like conversations. Alex, you need to understand the job. I would argue yes and no. I mean, I don't need to understand how to do a drain survey for me to employ Sean to do a drain survey. I'm theoretically at that point his boss, and if I have a frank and honest discussion with him and say, how long is this going to take? 4 hours, you know, 6 hours, then I can do my part of the job, which is to logistically manage Sean and make sure that he's A to B and he's got a full day's roster in front of him. But I don't need to know how to like camera drain, so long as there is that trust between us that he's not going to take the piss and I'm not going to, you know, run him into the ground. Does that make
question
sense?
you know what it is?
Check.
I'm going to have to be rude. So Mick's going. I don't want to leave this because I'm thoroughly enjoying this, but I have to go. I've got something on. I'm going to catch up on this because I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
We've only got 15
You
minutes
two
left.
can argue now. Good night. God bless.
Yeah.
Cheers, Sean.
See ya.
Catch you in a bit, man.
So here's the question. Do you think you can learn to be a good boss, or do you think you've just got it naturally?
I think there is an element of charisma and personality that is innate to people, but absolutely you can learn to be a good boss. You can learn to, you can learn to look for what makes for a good decision making process. There are courses on leadership, on management, on mates to managers, and certainly you can train yourself out of being a bad boss, and you can learn to be a better boss. But with any kind of leadership role, there's probably an innate level of charisma, machismo, trust that comes with that person. But no, I don't think it's nobody is beyond salvaging. You can learn to be a better boss. You can learn to be a good boss. And
that whole training thing, though, is quite a modern concept, isn't it? It's become more normal because, again, I can remember when I was made a supervisor with Rentokil, I was given a copy of the 3-Minute Manager, and that was, read that book. I just happened to have it, and off you go. There was no actual formal training to be a supervisor or manager as such. Whereas now, you would hope that I don't know. Do supervisors and managers and branch managers and service managers, do they get any actual more training, or do they just learn as they go these days? Who knows? Maybe somebody will say in the comments.
I think there's the opportunity, like a lot of these companies, I know certainly in my current role that there is a library of courses that I can dip into if I so wish, which range from everything from marketing all the way through to leadership skills if I want to. They're called pathways, and I can do that if I have the time and if I want to. Susan says, is it acceptable for an administrator to be the boss of the technical team? I think I did misconceptions there, which is that again, that is I think what's called a reductor ad absurdum, which is reducing an argument to its illogical conclusion. No, it's probably not acceptable for an administrator to be the boss of a technical team. However, it is probably acceptable for an office-based employee to manage a small group of technically minded people. So yes. What have we got here? At the end of the day, they are more interested in themselves than your company, but to realize that their efforts determine the profit. Yeah, I think that's again, people exist outside of work, I think is what's being said there. And a good manager will understand that life, doesn't necessarily, it doesn't begin and end when that person steps into their job. The irony being is that we probably see our colleagues, we probably see our peers at work more than we see our friends and family outside of work, just on balance of time. But yeah, the things that drive us: live to work or work to live. Choose one, and which one is it? But yes. So Ask Pest Control says, "So a supervisor had to do an HND." Because, and yeah, honestly, I think probably more managers, more supervisors, more leadership roles would benefit from doing a structured learning pathway to teach them at the very least the pitfalls of being a bad leader, a bad boss, a bad manager, and then allow them to grow on their own. Go on, what are your thoughts on this? We've got literally 10 minutes left, and you've been suspiciously quiet throughout most of it.
I think to a certain extent that you have got it in you or you haven't got it in you. But then that's just character, isn't it? Some people you like and you respect because of their persona, maybe. And then you can build on those qualities and learn methods of even just things like the old criticism sandwich bit. I mean, everybody knows that now, but it still does actually work. And if you, to
You
a
mean the
certain
shit
extent,
sandwich?
the shit sandwich, yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
So, those sort of things do help. So, I mean, yeah, I think a bit of training along with somebody that's got a good character goes down a lot. Does go down a long way
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Right, we've got probably enough time for just should we a question? Well,
What is that?
that is Brooke barking at the door. So give me a second while you just pull a question from the crowd.
Yeah. So I'm on my own. So has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask? Beware of ACAS. Hopefully, we never have to go down that route. Are we talking if one of the employees has a grievance as far as ACAS goes? Anybody in the comments got any questions for myself and Alex? Sean's dipped out, so if you've got anything, ask it now. Can't see anything. Nobody's asking anything. I think there was a question earlier from Rupert, but they're
Well,
coming
I've
through a
got
bit
one. I've
slow
got one for
tonight.
you as you find it, which
Go on.
is working. You've technically worked you've had two jobs: a small company and a large company. Would you which do you think is better in terms of organizational structure? Which is which is the one that you have the greater affinity for? Let's say when you
Um,
I phrased that really badly. When you worked for Rentokil and it was a massive organizational structure, did you look at it and say there are elements of this that I would like to bring into my business when I create it, or did you look at that organizational structure of manager on manager on manager and say this is absolute nonsense? I would like to sort of like um, just move away from that.
no, I think that a lot of the stuff that I'll answer that question straight away. No, it hasn't.
The other
Um,
Guardian might have though.
yeah, whoever they may be, because just another topic for another day. We've got the trademark on Guardian Pest Control, so and the ICPO trade on it. So if there's another Guardian, I don't know who they are. No, Rentokil really. They did. That even the structure was quite good. I don't know quite how they did it then. We had like 5 technicians. Was it 5? Maybe a few more underneath one supervisor. So it's just like a little team, really. And much the same as I would like to think that I run our little business now. It's much the same. Oh yes, Guardian. Yeah, the American Guardian. Yeah, you're right, Jason. Yeah, I did see that actually. Yeah, but I don't think it was PCP, was it? It was somebody else that bought it. So they did. I don't know how they structured now. So generally speaking, we had technicians, say 5 or 6 technicians per supervisor, and then there was a service manager and then a branch manager for each area. So it was actually small enough to be quite well handled, unless you had a dick of a branch manager. So, which we did at one stage actually. He went a bit rogue actually. He did a runner, um, and I did actually get a lot of experience from that, because I was a supervisor put into like a branch manager's role instantly, because the guy just went off into the ether for like 4 or 5 months, just disappeared, which was a bit odd. But yeah, generally speaking, I think Rentokil back then was run very well.
Hmm.
And a lot of stuff that they did do, we emulated for sure.
So with that, and then to be the last question of the evening, honestly, with all humility and all just are you a good boss? Do you feel you are a good boss?
I'd like to think so. I know I can be a bit of a dick at times. Probably, but the thing is, I'm probably more of a dick to my son because we work together and I can get away with it. And he, without him, I'd probably be all right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. But no, I think I am. Yeah, I'd like to think so. It's hard to say, isn't it? Because self-praise is no praise, as they say.
I'd agree with that. My man used to say, "Success will be heralded in private, and failure held up in full view of the public."
That's true. Yeah.
That was it. So that was our arrangement that we had. If I did well, it would be a pep talk in the car on the way home, and if I did badly, it would be a very public ousting of my shortcomings and fuck ups on the factory floor, and it did me good. So there we go. Right. I'm not sure if we've finally answered the question of good boss, bad boss, but I think we've definitely had some good discussions around it, haven't we?
Don't think we've actually answered I don't think we've actually answered the question. We've gone around and round and round, but hopefully it's given everybody, a good sounding anyway. But I'm disappointed nobody came on and just said, yeah, Fred Smith was the right, or anybody. I was expecting a few more fireworks.
Oh, maybe we'll get some in the emails after we've finished, but there we go. No, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I have to say, it's a shame that Sean had to drop out. But just before we log off for the evening, what have we got on next week? It's getting very close to Christmas.
We've got the monthly news next week, pest management news next week. Between us again.
I mean,
already. So I'm not sure what's gone on. So we'll have to make something up. So yeah, that next week is the news edition. So, and then into next year, we've got some good guests coming on, and then we'll be asking previous brilliant guests to come back on and let everybody know what's been going on over the last year or so. So we've got some exciting episodes coming up. So hopefully everybody will keep watching.
And I have to say, for anyone who's listening right now, we are still on the hunt for our next year's project. So just, not to give too much away because we want to do a big reveal a little bit later on, but we are looking for some enterprising and engaging younger technicians who might want to be involved in a project with us next year. So if you can think of any young technicians, that you work with, or that you may be related to, sons or daughters, that you want to put them forward or put them in contact with us. We've got some fairly interesting projects that we want to move forwards next year, and not to give too much away, but those of us that saw Sean and I talking at Pest Tech will know exactly what we're talking about. So with that, a little bit of a secret, a little bit of a drum roll, but we definitely need some younger people in our industry to help us out with some very exciting new leads for next year. So spread the word around, ask around, nominate people. Majestic Wildlife says, what are you classing as young? At this point in our industry, I'd say anything younger than 30, anyone sort of like sub 30 is classified as young in our industry. So under 30 would be
under 30. Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
We're going to knock it on the head for tonight.
I think so. I think it's just about that time, isn't it? So
yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
And we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.